Hi, my name is Greg, and I'm here to share what Christ has done in my life. Um, so I was born here in Hopkinsville. Um, my mother was um, a drug addict. She was 17 when she had me, and she gave me to my grandparents, and so I moved to Florida. So that's where I grew up at, was in Florida. My grandparents were alcoholics. My grandmother, they were really good parents, but they loved alcohol more than anything. That always was number one. But I had a good childhood up until I was about 9 or 8, and I started venturing out, hanging with the older crowd, stuff like that, and so I was molested as a kid. I don't remember a lot about it. I just remember the it was a shed this guy had, and I was in the shed, and he pretty much told me that if I told anybody that I'd get in trouble, and so I didn't tell anyone. I lived with that for a while. So about 12, age 12, through all this time I started smoking cigarettes and drinking. I'd sneak liquor out of my grandparents' cabinet and stuff like that. Around the age of 12, my grandmother got cirrhosis of the liver, and she from alcohol. And growing up, there was a lot of alcohol. Alcohol comes with fights, and through all this, my grandmother loved me, and I know she loved me the best way that she could. She loved gambling, she loved bingo, she loved alcohol, and I spent a lot of time by myself. And anyway, when she got sick, my uncle stepped in. He was really close. I was really close with him. He was homosexual, but he treated me like I was his baby, and I really liked that. I didn't have a father figure. I don't know my dad, and I don't no idea who he is. So he was always kind of like that father figure for me. He actually contracted HIV, and he struggled with that for most of my life. Anyway, my mom and my uncle stepped in. My grandmother she passed away. I didn't really understand what was going on. I guess I was numb to it. It was a very hard time for me. So I went from having clothes when I start school and having hot water and electric, and I never had to worry about any of that stuff. And when I moved in with my mom, of course she was in active addiction, and the hot water, the electric, all that stuff became a problem. I remember my first day of school in middle school, that it was like I was wearing old clothes and old shoes, and we didn't have any hot water, so I took a cold shower, and like my hair was sticking to my face because it was like frozen to my face. And this is in Florida, you know what I mean? So those things started to become normal to me. I started using drugs with my mom. I started smoking crack with my mom when I was 13. I never dealt with the death of my grandmother. I just kind of numbed it out, and that's where everything started for me. My mom wouldn't keep us long. Usually DCBS would come in, and they'd take us away, and then she'd get us back. She'd get clean for a little while. She'd get us back, and then she'd lose us again. And then, so me and my sister, I had a little sister. She was about 8 years old, younger than me, and we were in and out of the system. Foster home, group home. That went on for most of my teenage years. I went to probably 15 different schools from elementary school to high school. I didn't really, I never knew what normal was. I rebelled everywhere I went. I was angry. God was never a concept with me. It was never even a thought. I never even, cause I've been to church. My great grandmother used to take me to church. I've went to churches, but to be honest, with living with my mom, she used churches. She used churches to get money. She used churches for, at one point she made me shave all my hair off, and she was taking me around to churches and telling them that I had cancer and that she was trying to pay for my cancer treatments. So that was my idea of what churches were. Just tools. So I spent most of my teenage years in and out of foster homes and group homes. I didn't do well in school. I just wanted to get high, and I wanted to numb everything out. As time went on, that got worse and worse. And around the age of 18, I was almost about to turn 18, and my mom, I hadn't seen her in a couple of years, and she was living in Hopkinsville, so she she got a hold of me through my uncle, and she wanted me to come see her, so I came up here, and I was up here. I was only supposed to be here for 2 weeks, and ended up, still here now, but my addiction continued to get worse. It never crossed my mind whether or not I loved getting high more than anything else, and that was always the case with me. I didn't care about people. I didn't care about situations. The only thing that ever crossed my mind all the time was I just wanted to get high, and I guess it was trying to run from the pain of feeling rejected, from feeling like a failure, and as my addiction progressed, my consequences progressed. I met this girl when she was 16, and we got together, and she got pregnant, and she was a very sweet, loving person. Wanted to be responsible. She wanted a family. She wanted all the things that a normal person wanted, and all I wanted was to get high. And I remember when she told me that she was pregnant, and I was actually hiding in the bathroom, using drugs, and I just kept telling myself I had 9 months. I had 9 months to worry about it. I didn't have to worry about it right now, and the 9 months came pretty quick, and I ended up trying to put myself in treatment. I went through Volta in 2004, and I graduated, and I ended up relapsing. And this went on for many, many years. She would work, pay the bills. She actually moved in. We moved into a place, and I never had a concept of being responsible or paying bills or anything. She did all that. She washed my clothes. She cooked my meals. She did all that. Meanwhile, I was taking everything I could take, feeding my addiction. My daughter, I would take my daughter with me everywhere. Of course, I was the main person that would sit with her while she went to work. I would sit with my daughter, and I took her everywhere with me, to crack houses, to doing this, doing that, putting her in dangerous situations. And it was normal to me. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I didn't feel I was then. Time went on. My daughter got older. Our relationship got worse. My addiction got worse. And she got pregnant again. And it was my second daughter. Felt like I had another chance at this. I put myself in rehab again. At this point, I had some legal stuff going on. I had actually gotten in trouble and started getting in trouble, going to jail. So I had obligations as far as trying to I had people pushing me. God puts people in our life, and I can look back now and see of all the opportunities that God gave me and people that he put in my life that I just totally ignored, and I totally pushed God out. Kept doing things my way. I'd get clean for a little bit, relapse. Try it again, relapse. Try it again, relapse. This went on for a lot of years. I it wasn't until my third daughter, she got pregnant with my third daughter, and by this time I had wrecked anything good and everything good that came, and this woman that stood by me all this time, we was together for 17 years, and this woman stood by me and believed in me, and I never, I didn't know what a family was. I didn't know what being a husband was. I didn't know what being a father was. It's not an excuse, but all I knew was, the only thing I could obsess and compulse over was getting high. I never really had an idea that things could be, that I deserved a better life, or that things could get better. I always felt like I was getting what I deserved. Not realizing that it was through my own choices that I was continually destructing my life and everybody around me. And it took me so long to see that. So it's with my third daughter. And I'll be honest, I was hoping it was a boy, and it was a girl, and I was disappointed. I wouldn't trade her for the world now, for any boy. But so 3 girls. Trying to be a father, I didn't know what I was doing. Like I said, their mom did most of the growing up. Meanwhile, I just continued to get high and get high. And my jail sentences got longer, the consequences got greater, and I did drug court 2011, and I tried to weasel my way through that the best way I could. What happened was in 2011, I guess it was kind of God holding me accountable. I had been selling drugs and doing things, and they showed up with sealed indictments, and I had a bunch of trafficking charges and stuff like that, and I was sitting in jail, and I was thinking, like, this is my first time ever really being in trouble. I'm thinking I'm going to prison for life, and they gave me drug court, and I get out in drug court, and I was just doing things my own way. And when I got sick and tired of the consequences, I decided to do something different, and I graduated drug court in 2014, and I decided that I was just, I did relapse, but I got back in the program, and I tried to do this again, and I put together almost 18 months, and I was working at Genesis, which used to be Volta, and I felt like I was doing so great. I was, through all this process, all these times that I got clean, the thing that was missing was God. I was doing things on my own will. So in that 18 months, I was cheating on my wife. I was doing all these things that I was trying to fill a void inside of me that only God can fill, and I continued to try to do that, and I ended up, the guilt and shame from my choices, even from being clean, I got to a point to where I didn't want to live anymore, and that was before I used any drugs and before I relapsed, and I didn't want to live anymore, and everything piled up on me, and I ended up, even though I was working in a rehab, I ended up relapsing, and that was hard on me. And what kills me the most about the relapse when I think about it now is that I had so many people that God had placed in my life that believed in me and that loved me and genuinely cared about me, that as soon as I used, all that went out the window. I didn't care about anything or anybody that was positive. Still to this point, the concept of God and Jesus has not come into into my being at all. Well, this time it was the last time I started using the needle and started coming home and falling asleep, being up for weeks at a time, and I'd come home and I'd fall asleep with needles in my arm, and my youngest daughter was very little, and she would wake up and find me laid there passed out with needles all around me and stuff. So she packed up the kids one day and she left, and I woke up to an empty apartment. You would think for most people that would have been my wake-up call, but it spiraled me into something way worse. So now I felt like I had no reason to try anything anymore. My addiction took a toll that it took me to places I never thought it would take me. I started getting heavy into selling drugs, running the streets. I continued to try to be in my kid's life. I didn't understand why she was doing this to me, putting EPOs on me. We went through a divorce. The divorce was it was nasty. Like, I love my kids, but I never loved my kids enough to stop doing what I was doing. So I was always fighting to see him and fighting. And the thing is I was fighting myself. Like, if I could have just laid some of this, if I could have laid this down. But it never crossed my mind. So I continued to fight 5-6 years of that. 16 felonies, in and out of jail. It was the same routine. I'd run the streets and do what I wanted to do, and I felt like I felt like I had some type of success in it, because I went from a point where I was stealing from my family to support my habit, and now I had figured out a way to support my habit and have money to be able to take my kids whatever they needed, and to do this and do that, and I felt like I was successful. And so 16 felonies in 6 years. I kept having things would happen, and I know it was God. Falling asleep behind the wheel with my foot on the brake in the middle of the road. I had wrecks where I ran into somebody doing 60 miles an hour on Dawson Road, and like all these situations that continued happening for me, and it's almost like it was God shaking me. But I just kept doing things my way, and like I said, the jail sentences got worse, my consequences got worse, and finally, 2022, I was arrested for failure to appear on a traffic warrant, and I had a failure to appear warrant, and I was actually on a moped, and I was on the side of the road laying down and taking the kickstand off because it was dragging, and this police officer rode up on a bicycle and laid down on the other side of the moped and started helping me, and I thought that was odd. I never had an officer, come help me do anything, and I ended up having a warrant, so I ended up going to jail, and it was $100 bond, so I thought I was just going to be able to bond out. When they strip searched me, they found dope, they found weed, and so now I turned this $100 bond into, a 3-4 year charge, and I thank God for that now. But I was so angry then. I was going to court for fleeing and evading from Katie's. In 2021, they tried to stop me, and I had a probation violation. I took off. I was trying to get my kid's mom's vehicle back to her. I wanted to hug my kids one more time, and it didn't turn out the way I thought it would. I ran in the house, closed the door, and they came in there with guns. They tased me. They scared my kids. That's just one of the examples of how my way of doing things, the situations that it gets me in. So I'm going to court for that. I've got all these new charges. I've got all these probation. I'm going to prison. I know I'm going to prison. I started talking to God, and I feel like he spoke to me in the jail cell. I was in there for almost a year, and I feel like I started thinking back on the 17 years that me and my kid's mom was together, and I started thinking back on things, and I was like, I gotta understand why she was holding my kids for me. Why am I always fighting her to see my kids and stuff? And it just dawned on me like a ton of bricks. Like, you're doing this. Your actions have done this. It's not her. Like, she's protecting my kids from me because I'm a monster, and that's what I turned into. I just make horrible decisions, and it affects everybody around me. And I never even took the time to even think about that. And it's like God spoke to me in the cell that day, and I asked him, like, if you can give me one more chance, and out of the 1,000 chances that you gave me, if you could give me one more. And they let me do drug court again. They let you do it every 10 years. So the judge is like, he's sent me to rehabs all across Kentucky. I've been to so many rehabs, and he's at his wit's end with me, and he's like, this is it. Like, either you do this time, or you can go sit your time in prison. So I get out of jail, and don't you know, I relapse. With all this hanging over my head, I relapse. And I was out of jail for a week, and I went right back to jail. So once again, I'm in jail, doing those foxhole prayers, asking God, please get me out of this time, just this time. I wish I had something to say, like some epiphany happened or something, but it really didn't. Like, God blessed me with another chance. I went to rehab for 28 days, and I knew I was getting out into drug court, and honestly, I didn't know how I was going to do it. The address that I had, everybody was using it, and I didn't really know what to do. I just set my mind to it that I was going to do this no matter what, and my ex-wife opened her home to me. She let me stay there. I switched my address to there, and I started going to meetings. I started going to 4D. I started going to church. I came back into contact with Charlie. Charlie, he was a really good friend of mine, and we used to run the streets together, and then seeing him with his situation and being clean gave me hope. It gave me, if he could do it, like, I know that I could do this. And he was one of the first people. I remember it was Easter Sunday, and he invited me to church, and I went to Concord, and he pulled me down to the altar, and he hugged me, and he was talking to me, and he told me that he believed in me, like, and he sees something in me, and that he knew that I could have a better life, and he was trying to point me in the way of Jesus. And I didn't know Jesus. I didn't know God. It scared me a lot, because I felt like I had done so much wrong that Jesus and God didn't want anything to do with me. But it was from that day forward, like, Charlie believed in me enough to get me a job, to help me get a job at Redeemed and Restored. He helped me get a job at the factory he was working, and I started working, and like, things started getting better, and I started praying, and I started taking suggestions from other people. My life started to get better. It wasn't easy, but it got better. It's been a long, hard road. These past 18 months have been, if I could find a word for it, it's been worth it. The struggles, and I still struggle, but with my relationship with Christ has gotten so strong. It's like, and I have a sponsor, a sponsor that holds me accountable, and a sponsor that tells me the truth, whether it hurts my feelings or not. And I need that truth, I need the truth that I find in the Word. But I'm learning, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know much about the Bible. I don't know much about this, but I know what God has done for me. He's really showed out this past year. Me and my ex-wife, we was back together. I've been in my kids' life for the past 18 months, and I've been a father to them. They haven't had to worry about this or that. I've taken care of my responsibilities, and that's all God. It's not me. I've just opened the door just enough, and God has blown it wide open and is working in my life. Me and my ex-wife tried for 18 months, and the pain that I caused her in the past, sometimes the trauma is too much to come back from, and we've had to let that go. And I've had to trust God. Like, okay, God, you got me here. Where do I go? You got me this far. And he showed up. I have my own vehicle, which is not a big deal to a lot of people, but I have my own vehicle that's insured in my name. I have my own place. And it's been scary. I spent a lot of time alone in my life, but I think I had gotten so dependent on someone doing everything for me, or someone doing everything with me, that now I feel like God has put me in this place for me to get closer to Him. And I'm studying the Word. I don't do this thing perfect, but I'm trying. And I feel like God really has met me in the trying. I do work a 12-step program as well. And I'm very grateful for the 12 steps, because they brought me to a relationship with Jesus. They brought me to the people that I have in my life today. I have so many amazing people in my life just over an 18-month span that I've probably had people, but I've never been able to grasp the concept of the love that they show me. And it's like I see Jesus through all of them. My life is great today. I couldn't ask for any more. It's not easy, but I know through all this that God is getting me through this. And in my mind, I've never had a question of whether I love getting high more than anything else. It's always been there, and I would always do whatever I needed to do so I could get back to what I know, and that was that lifestyle. Today, God has started to change my thinking to where I question now, do I really love getting high more than anything else? Because I'm really starting to love life on this side of the thing more than anything else. I'm really starting to love the people in my life and my kids and being a father. This is all things that God has blessed me with. That when I got myself out of the way, He was able to do this with my life, and I'm truly grateful. I'm truly grateful to every person that I've come into contact with, that God has placed in my life. And I don't know if any of that made any sense. I hope that it did. And I just want you to know that if you're new, or if you're struggling, like, there is an answer. You know what I mean? There is a way out. If I can do it, anyone can do it. And Jesus is the way. I know for me, I needed to find, I got 12 steps brought me to Jesus. That doesn't work for everybody, but I can tell you one thing I know for sure, that Jesus does work, and He does love us, and He wants that relationship with us. And if He can bless my life the way He's blessed my life, He will bless yours too. Just don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle happens, but we have to be willing to meet Him. We have to be willing to try just a little bit, and He seems to meet us in the trying. But that's all I got. Thank y'all so much for listening.